The locksmith's tools whispered against my front lock while I sat inside my own house in the dark and let him keep working. It was 8:35 on Christmas Eve. I had turned the heat low, killed every lamp, and parked my car 3 streets away so the place would look empty. From outside, my house must have looked abandoned for the night. From inside, it felt like a courtroom holding its breath. I knew who was on the porch before anyone spoke. I knew my mother's careful little cough. I knew my father's heavy silence. And I knew the bright, stupid confidence in my brother Nathan Walker's laugh. The laugh he used whenever he believed the world had already agreed to give him what he wanted. They had come for my house. Welcome back to the Untold Truths. My name is Emily Walker. I am 37, and this is the story of the family that forgot to make space for me every Christmas until the night they tried to force their way into the one home that had my name on it. For almost 20 years, I was the extra person at their holiday table, the one they could always explain away. They never thought I would grow up, buy the largest house on the nicest street in town, and become the person deciding who was allowed through the door. They also did not know that I was not alone in the dark. The first Christmas I can clearly remember, I was 9. Our dining room had a long walnut table with dents under the polish, the kind of table my mother treated like it was a holy object for 3 weeks every December. She ironed napkins until the edges could cut skin. She brought out the heavy plates, the crystal glasses, the candle holders shaped like angels, and a bowl of glass ornaments that nobody was allowed to touch. That year, I counted the chairs. There was one for my father, one for my mother, one for Nathan, who was 5 and already treated as if the laws of gravity were negotiable for him. There were seats for both grandparents, a great uncle, and a neighbor couple my mother had invited because they had nowhere else to go. Then there was no chair left. I stood near the doorway in a green velvet dress and black shoes that pinched my toes, waiting for someone else to notice the problem. Children do that. They stand there silently, as if adults will eventually discover arithmetic. My mother noticed me noticing. She did not snap. She never did. That was part of what made everything so hard to explain. She came over, brushed a piece of hair off my cheek, and gave me that gentle face people use when they have decided a child is too young to deserve the truth. "Sweetheart, the table only holds so many," she said. Then she gave me a plate and led me to the kitchen. I ate Christmas dinner on a wooden stool beside the counter, close enough to hear the laughter through the doorway and far enough away to know it was not meant for me. At the time, I told myself it was practical. Crowded house, too many guests, adults being adults, which is apparently the polite phrase for nonsense with better shoes. But it happened the next year too, and the year after that, guests changed. Grandparents stopped coming. The neighbor couple moved away. Somehow the missing place never appeared. It was never really about furniture. I would need almost 2 decades to admit that. I need to say this plainly because people like tidy categories. Nobody beat me. Nobody threw me out into the snow. Nobody called me unwanted in a dramatic hallway scene with violins swelling in the background. Real life is stingier with its drama. What I got was quieter. It was being overlooked in a room where everyone had eyes. It was hearing my mother say, "Oh, I forgot," so many times that the words became a family tradition. It was watching tags on presents appear under the tree in her looping handwriting: Dad, Mom, Nathan, Grandma, Uncle. I would crawl close and read them one by one twice, then 3 times because maybe I had missed mine. I had not. Later, there would be something for me: socks, a plain sweater, a set of hair clips. Always delivered with an explanation that made the gift feel like a mistake being corrected. "We didn't want you getting spoiled. We thought you already had enough. You're so easy, Emily, you never make a fuss." That last one was true because I had learned making a fuss did not create a chair. It only made everyone look at you while you still stood. In family pictures, I hovered at the edge. One shoulder cropped out. Half my face turned away. Nathan was always in the middle, toothy and bright, holding whatever gift had made him shriek that year. I was the smudge beside the tree. I became useful early. I packed my own school lunches. I learned to cook scrambled eggs because nobody remembered whether I had eaten. I brushed knots out of my hair with one hand while watching morning cartoons on mute so I would not wake anyone. By 13, I knew how to run laundry, defrost meat, balance the checkbook my mother left open on the counter, and smile when adults told me I was so mature. Being mature is what adults call a child when the child has stopped inconveniencing them. For years, I believed there must be a way to earn my place. I cleaned. I got good grades. I helped with Nathan's homework. I remembered birthdays, folded towels, refilled water glasses at family gatherings, and made myself smaller in every room. I never asked the only question that mattered. Why was I the only one the table could not hold? There was a silver frame on my mother's dresser that faced the wall. I noticed it because children notice forbidden things the way raccoons notice trash cans. The frame was small, tarnished at the corners, and when I once turned it around, I saw a photo of a pale blue hospital blanket. No baby. No face. Just the blanket folded in my mother's hands. I was around 11 when I asked what it was. My mother took it from me so quickly that her fingers left marks on my wrist. Then she softened, because softness was her favorite weapon. "That isn't for you," she said. "Put it back." Every December after that, she changed. Not loudly. She simply moved farther away inside herself. She would stare out the window with a mug of coffee cooling between her palms. She would start making dinner and forget the stove was on. My father walked around her like one careless word might shatter the floor. I knew the photograph, the silence, and the empty space at Christmas were connected. I did not know how. So I did what children do when adults build a mystery around their pain. I assumed I was the answer. I would be 37 before my father finally told me what that blue blanket meant. By then, it explained nearly everything and excused absolutely nothing. I left home the week after my 18th birthday in April of 2008. I had saved like someone planning an escape because that was exactly what it was. Babysitting money. Cash from cleaning neighbors' garages. Tips from a summer waitressing job. A little birthday money I pretended to spend and hid instead. By the time I left, I had $1,340, a rust-colored Honda Civic I bought from a retired teacher, and one duffel bag. Inside the bag were clothes, my toothbrush, my high school diploma, a pair of work shoes, and the only photo I owned where I was standing in the center. A friend's mother had taken it after graduation. She had not known she was breaking a family rule. Nobody tried to stop me. My mother stood at the sink rinsing a cup that was already clean. My father sat in his chair with the morning paper open. Nathan, 14 and somehow already exhausted by everyone else's existence, watched television without looking away. "Let us know when you land somewhere," my mother said. That was the goodbye. I drove almost 3 hours before I pulled into a diner off a county road in Indiana. I cried in the parking lot for 10 minutes, hard enough to scare myself, then wiped my face with a fast food napkin and went inside. Over eggs, toast, and coffee that tasted like somebody had threatened a bean with hot water, I made myself a promise. One day I would own a home with my name on the deed. A real place, a front door, a lock, a table. A house nobody could quietly decide I did not deserve. I had no plan. I had no safety net. I had no idea how expensive everything was because 18-year-olds are apparently released into the world with algebra but no understanding of car insurance. Still, I knew one thing. I was done waiting for someone else to make room. I started with cleaning supplies in a plastic bin. That is not poetic. It was literally a blue bin from a discount store. 3 bottles of cleaner, old towels, rubber gloves, and a stack of flyers I printed at the library. I offered house cleaning, errand help, organizing, pet feeding, anything I could do without needing equipment I could not afford. My first client was a nurse named Tanya who worked nights and had 3 kids under 10. Her kitchen looked like a cereal factory had lost a war. I cleaned it until the counters shone. She cried when she came home, pressed $30 into my hand, and gave my number to 2 friends. Those 2 friends gave my number to more people. For the first year, I slept in my car more than I admit without tasting metal in my mouth. I parked behind a supermarket because the loading dock lights stayed on all night. I showered at a gym that cost $11 a month. I kept my clothes in plastic bags in the trunk and divided cash into envelopes labeled gas, supplies, food, and house. The house envelope usually had the least in it. I still kept it. When you grow up as the person everyone forgets, you learn a dangerous lesson. You start thinking failure would prove them right. So you overcorrect like a lunatic with a mop. I cleaned baseboards nobody inspected. I returned to redo shelves nobody complained about. I worked with fevers, with headaches, through holidays, on my birthday, and on every Christmas because Christmas paid extra and nobody was waiting for me anyway. It made me excellent. It also made me lonely in a very efficient way. By 26, I had hired my first employee. By 29, I had 4. At 31, I rented a tiny office behind a bakery and registered the company properly. I called it Harbor Home Services. We did more than clean. We checked on houses while families traveled. We organized move-outs. We helped elderly clients keep their homes livable. We handled seasonal openings for people with lake houses. I built a business around caring for places because the world is apparently hilarious and cruel enough to turn your childhood wound into your business model. But I was good at it. People trusted me with keys. They trusted me with alarm codes, sick parents, pets, family heirlooms, and houses full of things I would never have dreamed of owning. I treated every home like it mattered because I knew what it meant not to have one that felt like yours. My family remained exactly as they were. The first Christmas after I left, I called from a payphone outside the supermarket. My mother answered after 5 rings. I could hear music in the background, voices, plates clinking. "Are people over?" I asked. "Oh," she said, as if she had forgotten sound traveled through phones. "Just family, a few neighbors." I waited. She did not invite me. She did not apologize. Then in that same soft voice from my childhood, she said, "There's only so much space, honey, you understand." I was 19, broke, sleeping in a car, and still stupid enough to say, "I understand." After that, I called less. Every few years, Hope would embarrass me by crawling out from under a rock. I would send a card. I would call near Christmas. I would ask if they were doing anything. The answer was always some version of small gathering, which somehow included 12 people and not me. Nathan, meanwhile, lived in a different weather system. For his 16th birthday, my parents rented a tent and hired a barbecue truck. When he graduated with grades that looked like a ransom note, they threw a party anyway. When he needed a car appeared. When he tried college and decided after 1 semester that the system was not for him, nobody asked about the money already spent. I heard the updates from my cousin Denise Carter. Denise was the family's unofficial news service, powered entirely by coffee and the inability to keep anything to herself. She called me every few months, usually beginning with, "I probably shouldn't tell you this." Then she would tell me this. Nathan started a landscaping company and quit when August was hot. He bought into a vending machine route and sold half the machines to cover missed payments. He claimed to launch a marketing agency, which seemed to consist of a website, business cards, and a truck he could not afford. Each time my parents rescued him, they called it helping. I called it training a grown man to expect airbags under every cliff. Eventually, Nathan married a woman named Lauren. I met her twice before the disaster year. She was neat, watchful, and sharp in the way people become when poverty has taught them that one mistake can swallow the floor. Nathan floated through life expecting rescue. Lauren studied exits. Between the two of them, they were more dangerous than either one alone. Denise told me they were renting a house beyond their budget, leasing furniture, carrying business debt, and still posting vacation pictures as if debt collectors cared about beach filters. I listened from a distance and told myself I did not care. That was a lie. I cared that my parents had so much energy for saving him and so little for seeing me. I cared that every December still found the old bruise. I could own a company, pay employees, fix boilers, negotiate contracts, and still become 9 years old when I smelled pine and cinnamon in a store. The wound did not disappear. It just learned to wear work clothes. The last family event I attended before everything cracked open was my grandmother's funeral. She was my father's mother, the only adult in the family who had ever slipped me little envelopes with $5 bills and whispered, "Don't spend it on anyone else." She used to call me her quiet star. Not exactly a rescue boat, but when you are drowning, even a floating shoe looks generous. I drove 4.5 hours for the funeral. I sat near the back. Afterward, in the church hall, I did what I always did. I cleared plates. I refilled coffee. I collected napkins. I made myself useful because my nervous system still believed usefulness might equal belonging. Nathan found me by the sink. He had been drinking cheap wine from a paper cup, because grief for some people is just an excuse to become louder. He leaned against the counter, watched me rinse plates, and smiled like he was about to do me a favor. "You know you can stop trying, right?" he said. I looked at him. "Trying what?" "This." He waved vaguely at the room, the family, the whole rotten architecture. "Showing up, helping, acting like it matters." I turned off the faucet. "Nobody expects you to come," he said. "You're not really one of us, Emily." He did not sneer, that would have been easier. He sounded almost kind, like he was correcting a schedule error. Then he wandered away. I stood there with wet hands, staring at the drain, and felt something in me go still, not break. It had broken years ago in quieter places. This was different. This was the moment I stopped pretending I was waiting for an invitation. If I was not one of them, then their table no longer got to define me. I dried my hands, left the plates in the sink, walked out of the church hall, and drove home. After that funeral, my life grew. Harbor Home Services expanded from one battered van to 3 clean ones with lettering on the sides. Then 5. I hired supervisors. I built client systems. I learned payroll, taxes, contracts, insurance, state filings, and all the other thrilling parts of adulthood nobody mentions, because apparently society prefers surprise attacks. By early 2026, I had 13 employees, steady commercial contracts, and more private clients than we could accept. I paid people well. I gave Denise's oldest son a summer job and watched him become the first person in that branch of the family to understand invoices before age 20. I was not famous. I was not private jet rich. But I was secure, and security is a kind of wealth people underestimate until they have lived without it. There were months when the company looked healthy from the outside and barely survived inside my checking account. A van transmission failed the same week a client delayed payment. A worker got hurt lifting a box, and I spent 3 nights reading workers' compensation rules because ignorance is not a defense, just an expensive hobby. I learned to say no to clients who treated staff like furniture. I learned to fire people kindly and hire slowly. I learned that a business is not built by one heroic speech, despite what movies keep trying to sell. It is built by answering emails when you are tired, paying bills before paying yourself, and not confusing panic with strategy. Every December, I gave my team Christmas bonuses before I bought anything for myself. Not because I was noble. Because I knew what it felt like to be the name left off the tag, and I refused to run a workplace that recreated my mother's living room with payroll software. My family did not know. They still imagined me as the girl who left with a duffel bag and a dented Civic, scraping by somewhere to prove a point nobody cared about. They never asked what my company did. They never asked where I lived. They never asked whether I was okay. So they did not see the house coming. I found it in September of 2026 on Cedar Row. It was a 3-story brick house with a wraparound porch, a tower room on the corner, tall windows, and a front staircase that looked like it expected better manners from everyone. It had been built in 1914 by a judge, owned later by a doctor, then neglected by investors who thought historic character meant water damage with ambition. Most buyers saw repairs. I saw bones. I walked the house twice before making the offer. The real estate agent kept pointing out challenges, which was a polite way to say expensive disasters wearing crown molding. I saw water stains in the upstairs hall and asked about the roof. I tested windows. I opened closets. I stood in the basement and listened to the furnace kick on. The agent seemed confused by me, probably because she expected a buyer in love with a turret to behave like a Victorian ghost with a mortgage pre-approval. But I was not buying a fantasy. I was buying proof. Every cracked tile and stubborn door felt honest to me. Damage you can see is easier than damage everyone pretends is not there. I had spent 15 years inside houses. I knew what could be fixed, what should be feared, and what only looked dramatic because wallpaper is capable of emotional terrorism. The floors needed refinishing. The kitchen needed mercy. The roof needed money. But the structure was solid. The first time I walked through the front hall, I imagined a long table near the windows. A table with room because I said there was room. I bought the house. The down payment came from years of envelopes, bank transfers, skipped vacations, second jobs, and refusing to quit when quitting would have felt justified. At closing, I signed page after page until my hand cramped. The lawyer slid the final recorded copy toward me a week later, and I read the top line until it blurred. Grantee, Emily Walker, sole owner. Sole owner. 2 words can do a lot when you spent childhood being counted as a maybe. That night, I sat on the porch steps of the Cedar Row house with a paper cup of gas station coffee and cried less than I thought I would. Maybe because the 18-year-old in the diner had been crying for me all along. I had done it. I had built a place nobody could deny me. For about 3 weeks, the story stayed mine. Then Denise found out. Denise told her sister, who told someone at a hair salon, who told my mother, because small-town information travels faster than emergency services and with worse ethics. Suddenly, after years of near silence, my mother called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Emily," she said, warm as butter left under a lamp, "I've been thinking about you." That sentence should have been simple. It was not. My mother had different kinds of warmth. There was real warmth, rare and brief, like the time I had pneumonia at 12 and she sat beside me for half an hour. Then there was useful warmth, the kind she used when she needed cooperation. I had spent a lifetime studying the difference. This was useful warmth wearing a cardigan. "I heard you bought a lovely old home," she said. "Your father and I would love to see it." 2 days later, Nathan texted me for the first time in months. Not hello, not congratulations. "How big is it? How many rooms? What did you pay? Is it in your name only?" I stared at that last one for a long time. Is it in your name only? People ask some questions because they are curious. People ask other questions because they are measuring the fence before they climb it. I did not answer. I made tea, stood in the unfinished kitchen, and remembered Nathan in the church hall saying, "You're not really one of us." Then I looked around at the cracked plaster, the wide staircase, the windows I had already paid to restore, and understood something with the dull certainty of a nail going into wood. They had not remembered me. They had noticed the house. I called my real estate attorney the next morning. Her name was Marissa Bennett, and she had handled the closing. She was compact, brisk, and spoke in the tone of a woman who had never once been fooled by a sob story at a conference table. I told her about my family's sudden interest, Nathan's questions, and the strange feeling that had settled behind my ribs. "Can someone actually steal a house?" I asked. "Not in a movie, in real life." There was a silence long enough to answer me. "Yes," Marissa said. "It happens more often than people think." She explained deed fraud. Someone forges your signature on a quitclaim deed or another transfer document. They get it notarized, or fake the notary, or use someone careless enough not to ask questions. Then they file it with the county recorder. The recorder's office does not investigate every signature at the counter. It records documents. That is the machine. Fraud gets sorted out later, after the damage is already standing in the room with shoes on. And the ugly part, Marissa added, is that the person doing it is often not a stranger. It is usually someone close enough to know what you own. A relative, a friend, a business partner. Someone with access, motive, and confidence that you will be too shocked or embarrassed to fight. Human civilization apparently has invented both indoor plumbing and paperwork-based home theft. Progress is a mixed bag. What do I do? I asked. You sign up for the county property alert today, she said. Our county offered a free fraud notification service. You registered your name and parcel number. If any document was recorded against your property, you received an email immediately. It did not stop fraud from being filed, but it made sure you knew fast. Speed matters, Marissa said. If anyone records something false, you want to catch it before they sell, borrow against it, or try to take possession. I signed up that afternoon. I printed the confirmation. Then I printed the recorded deed showing me as sole owner. I placed both pages in a folder and put the folder in my desk. One page said the house was mine. The other promised I would know if someone tried to make paper say otherwise. I told no one, not Denise, not my parents, definitely not Nathan. When my mother called, I stayed vague. When Nathan texted, I replied slowly or not at all. I let them keep thinking I was careless, lonely Emily, the girl who would be grateful for attention and too emotional to notice the knife. It is useful sometimes to be underestimated. Miserable, yes, but useful. The number came from Denise in late October. I probably shouldn't say anything, she began, proving once again that she absolutely should not be trusted with nuclear codes. Nathan was in trouble, serious trouble. He had personally guaranteed an $84,000 business loan for a home renovation supply scheme that collapsed before summer ended. The lender was not my parents and could not be softened with tears, casseroles, or promises that Nathan was finding himself. The lender wanted payment. Nathan and Lauren were also behind on rent. Their landlord had filed the first eviction paperwork. My parents had already drained savings helping Nathan through previous failures. Their own house had a second mortgage tied to one of his disasters. Your mom keeps saying the family could lose everything, Denise said. I stood in my new kitchen, one wall still half stripped of wallpaper, and did the math. $84,000. A desperate brother. A calculating wife. Parents who had spent decades feeding his belief that consequences were for other people. And me, suddenly visible because I owned the largest unencumbered asset in the family. The pieces did not form a misunderstanding. They formed a map. In November, my mother invited me to Christmas for the first time in 19 years. We want you home for Christmas Eve, she said. The whole family together. It's time, Emily. There's a place for you. There it was. The sentence I had once wanted so badly I would have crawled across broken glass for it. There's a place for you. Hearing it now made my stomach turn. Nobody spends 19 years forgetting a chair and then suddenly finds it in the attic for sentimental reasons. Not when there is debt in the house and a deed across town. I'll think about it, I said. That night, Nathan texted again. Big houses mean big paperwork. You keeping your deed and title stuff somewhere safe. Safe deposit box. Fireproof safe? Just asking because people lose things. He was not worried I would lose documents. He wanted to know where they were. I screenshotted the messages. Then I created a folder on my phone with a boring name and began saving everything. Texts, call logs, voicemails, dates, times, screenshots, every little nudge. Every question shaped like a fishing hook. I run a business. Records are oxygen. Anyone who has ever dealt with taxes learns that the universe may forgive your sins, but the government wants receipts. Then Lauren called me. She sounded friendly, almost sisterly, which was impressive considering we had shared maybe 3 conversations in our lives. She talked about the house, old plumbing, whether I had found a decent contractor. Then she glided exactly where she meant to go. Nathan and I were looking at some paperwork stuff, she said. Property transfers can be so confusing. When you bought your place, did the county verify your signature or does the notary handle that? Like if a quitclaim gets filed, do they actually check the person signed it? There are innocent questions. That was not one. I kept my voice light. Honestly, I barely looked. Marissa handled the legal things. Paperwork makes my eyes glaze over. Lauren laughed and I heard her relax. That was when I understood the division of labor. Nathan had the entitlement. Lauren had the research. He believed he deserved my house. She was figuring out which door in the system had the weakest hinge. They thought I was not paying attention. Cute, in the way a raccoon thinks the porch light means applause. In early December, my mother said too much. She called to press me again about Christmas Eve. She told me my father missed me, which was bold since my father had spent years demonstrating missing me in total silence. She said Nathan wanted to start fresh. Then she shifted to the house. It's such a large place for one person, she said. A home like that should be full. It should be for family. You shouldn't be wandering around all those rooms alone. I said nothing. Then she added gently, almost dreamily, you know how it is, there's only so much space. For a second, I was 9 again, standing in my pinching shoes while she pointed me toward the kitchen. The sentence had changed clothes, but it was the same sentence. When I was a child, it meant there was no space for me. Now it meant I was taking up too much. My house, bought with my money, held in my name, was somehow already becoming, in her mind, a family resource that I had selfishly occupied. I'll let you know about Christmas, I said. After we hung up, I stood in the front hall, right where I had pictured the long table, and felt something cold and clean settle through me. They were coming. The only question was whether I could catch them before they made the kind of mess even courts struggle to unwind. My first instinct was to call Nathan and tell him I knew. That is what fixers do. We see the leak and grab a bucket. We see the fire and reach for water. We see the snake and regrettably try to reason with it because we are idiots with hope. I called Marissa instead. If I confront them now, I asked, will that stop it? It might stop this attempt, she said. It will not give you proof. Suspicion is not a case. A strange phone call is not a forged deed. So I wait for them to commit the crime. You stay protected, she corrected. There is a difference. You have the alert. You document everything. If they file something fraudulent, then there is a recorded instrument. If they try to use it to take control of the property, there is action. That is when law enforcement has something solid. I hated every word because every word made sense. If I warned them, they would deny everything, disappear into wounded family theatrics, and try later with better cover. If I let them think I was unaware, they might walk the whole crime directly into the open. So I made the choice that felt least natural to me. I did nothing loudly. I answered some messages kindly. I ignored others. I let my mother think her soft voice was working. I let Nathan think guilt was moving me. I let Lauren think I had no idea how county records worked. And I waited. Waiting did not feel brave. It felt like leaving a candle burning beside curtains and calling it evidence collection. I checked the county alert every morning even though I knew it would email me. I checked the locks twice before bed. I kept the folder in my desk, then moved it to a fireproof box, then moved it back because hiding it made me feel ridiculous. The whole house, the house I had bought to feel safe, became a listening device for my own nerves. Still, I kept the act going. That was the part my family never understood about me. They mistook quiet for empty. Quiet people are not empty. Sometimes we are simply recording. They grew bolder quickly. People do once they mistake silence for weakness. Nathan sent a message one night that read, "You really think you need that much house? Mom and Dad are aging. Lauren and I are trying to keep this family above water. Maybe stop acting like you did everything alone." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the alternative was throwing my phone through a restored window, and those windows had cost real money. He kept going. That house could solve a lot. You walked away from us. Maybe now you can give something back. Family property should help family. Family property. It took him less than a month to promote my house from mine to communal. A stunning administrative achievement from a man who once failed to renew his own driver's license for 11 months. I screenshotted every message. My replies were careful. I hear you. Let's talk after Christmas. There's a lot to think about. Each answer gave him just enough hope to keep writing. Each message he sent gave me motive, pressure, intent. He was building my evidence folder one entitled little brick at a time. The alert came on Thursday, December 5 at 3:18 p.m. I was at my office reviewing payroll when my phone buzzed. The subject line made the room narrow. Property recording notification. I opened it with my thumb. A new document had been recorded against my parcel that afternoon. Document type, quitclaim deed. Grantor, Emily Walker. Grantee, Nathan Walker. For several seconds, I could hear nothing except the hum of the office heater. On paper, according to the county's public record, I had transferred my house to my brother. I had signed nothing. I had been in the office all day, with employees in and out, invoices open on my computer, and a dentist appointment reminder I had ignored twice. Someone had forged my name. Someone had presented the document. The county had recorded it. A piece of paper had tried to do what my family had done emotionally for years, erase me from the place I belonged. I thought rage would come first. It did not. What came first was calm, not gentle calm, not peaceful calm. The cold, bright calm of a person who has finally stopped guessing. They had done it. Now I could act. The next morning, I went to the recorder's office and requested a certified copy. The clerk handed it over after I paid a small fee, as casually as if she were giving me a receipt for printer paper. I sat in my car and read it line by line. There was my name, or an attempt at it. The first letter looked close. The rest leaned wrong. Whoever practiced had copied the shape, not the movement. My signature has a sharp upward pull at the end. The forged version sagged. Below it was a notary seal stating that I had appeared in person and signed willingly. I had never seen that notary. I had not appeared. I had not signed. I had not willingly done anything except buy a house and underestimate the creativity of parasites, which admittedly was on me. I photographed every page. I wrote down the recording number, filing time, notary name, and instrument number. Then I drove straight to the police station. Detective Alan Mercer met me in a small interview room that smelled like coffee and old carpet. He was broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and had the tired eyes of a man who had seen family members do things to each other that would embarrass wild animals. I laid everything out in order. My childhood, the sudden calls, Nathan's debt, Lauren's questions about signature verification, my mother pushing Christmas, the alert, the forged deed, the screenshots. Detective Mercer listened without interrupting. When I finished, he tapped the folder once with 2 fingers. "Most people don't come in this prepared," he said. "I run a company," I said. "Documentation is how I sleep at night." He told me the forged deed was serious. Forgery, false filing, attempted property theft, possibly conspiracy depending on who knew and who helped. Marissa could file to flag and void the fraudulent deed, but police would investigate the criminal side. Then Mercer said something that matched what Marissa had already warned me. A filed document is strong. But if they try to take physical possession, that makes the case much clearer. Juries understand someone walking into a house and changing locks. I already knew where this was going. "My mother keeps trying to get me away from the house for Christmas Eve," I said. Mercer leaned back. "Then we should consider why." I did not sleep much that week. There was one more person I brought in, a reporter named Jenna Carlisle. She wrote for the local paper and had been covering property fraud since fall. I had read her articles after Marissa explained the alert system. Jenna had written about elderly homeowners, heirs fighting over deeds, fake notaries, and relatives who treated property records like suggestion boards. I emailed her with enough detail to get a meeting. We sat in a coffee shop for 2 hours while I told her everything I could legally share. She took notes, then stopped writing when I described the Christmas tables and the missing chair. "Most people think fraud is faceless," she said. "They imagine strangers behind computers. Sometimes it is the person who knows where you keep the spare key," I said. She asked if she could witness whatever happened next if things came to a head. I said yes, as long as Detective Mercer approved her presence and she stayed out of the way. My family had controlled stories for years. They had decided what counted, who belonged, what was just a misunderstanding, and what everyone should politely ignore. This time, I wanted witnesses. Not for revenge. Not exactly. I wanted reality to have backup. By the 3rd week of December, the plan had shape. Marissa filed a preliminary notice challenging the fraudulent deed, but timed the more aggressive court action carefully with police guidance. Detective Mercer coordinated with 2 uniformed officers. Jenna agreed to be present if Nathan showed up. I installed cameras inside and outside, not hidden illegally, just ordinary home security positioned where they could see entry points. Then I gave my mother the answer she needed. "I'm going to stay home Christmas Eve," I told her. "Quiet night, I'm tired." She paused just a little too long. "That sounds restful," she said, "restful. There is a word with blood on its shoes." She thought she had confirmed the house would be occupied by only me, or maybe that I would fall asleep early, lonely and easy to move around. She had no idea I was setting the first full table of my life. On Christmas Eve, I made the house look empty. I turned off the porch lights. I drew curtains. I parked my car near a closed florist and walked back through the cold. I left no music playing, no tree glowing in the window, no hint that anyone was inside. But inside the Cedar Row house, every important seat was filled. Detective Mercer waited in the dining room with 2 officers. Jenna was upstairs in the tower room with a camera and a clear view of the hall. Marissa was not present, but she had reviewed the plan and told me exactly what to say and what not to say. I sat in the front parlor with my folder on my lap. Inside the folder were the clean deed and the fraud alert confirmation. The 2 pages that had kept me grounded since October. The house was cold. My hands were colder. At 8:35, headlights washed across the front windows and went dark. Car doors opened. Gravel shifted under shoes. Low voices climbed the porch steps. Nathan spoke first. "See, dark, told you she'd be sulking somewhere." Lauren answered sharply, "Keep your voice down." A man I did not know asked, "You've got proof of ownership." "Right here," Nathan said. Paper rustled. My mother's voice came next, thin and nervous. "Nathan, are you completely sure?" "For the last time, Mom," he said, "it's legal. The house is mine now, we're just securing our property." Our property. The locksmith set down a bag. Tools clinked against wood. I sat in the dark and listened to a stranger's pick enter my lock. There are sounds that travel backward through time. That scratching at my door carried me to every Christmas hallway, every missing tag, every kitchen stool, every photo where I had been half a person. My family had spent years keeping me outside. Now they stood outside my door trying to get in. The lock clicked. The deadbolt turned. My front door opened. Lauren entered first, flashlight sweeping across the hall. Nathan came behind her, holding the forged deed in one hand like a trophy. My parents followed last. My father looked smaller than I remembered. My mother looked around as if she were entering a church she planned to rob but still wanted credit for respecting. The locksmith stayed near the threshold. Nathan stepped fully into the hall and let out a low whistle. "Look at this," he said. "All this space wasted on her." Lauren was already business. "Change the front lock first, then the back. Tomorrow we call the utilities. Once we're in possession, she'll have to fight us in court, and that takes months." My mother whispered, "It really is beautiful." Nathan laughed. "She never belonged in a place like this anyway," he said. "She never belonged anywhere." That was the line, not because it surprised me, because it completed the circle. I reached to the side table and switched on the lamp. Light filled the parlor, then spilled into the hall. For one perfect second, nobody moved. Nathan froze with the forged deed still in his hand. Lauren's flashlight dropped toward the floor. My mother made a sound like air leaving a punctured tire. My father closed his eyes. Detective Mercer stepped out of the dining room with his badge visible. The 2 officers came behind him. Upstairs, Jenna's camera clicked once, then again. I stood with the folder in my hand. "Merry Christmas, Nathan," I said. "You may want to stop waving that document. It's evidence now." His face changed so fast it was almost fascinating. Confidence vanished. Panic rushed in and dressed itself as rage. "This is my house," he shouted. "I have the deed. You set this up, you always do this, you always make yourself the victim." "Put the paper down," Detective Mercer said. Nathan did not. Lauren, much smarter, said nothing. Her eyes moved from Mercer to the officers to Jenna on the stairs, and I watched her calculate 6 possible exits and find everyone locked by reality. A tragic night for mathematics, really. The locksmith began talking immediately. He said he had been hired to change locks on a property Nathan claimed to own. He had seen the recorded deed. He did not know there was a dispute. Mercer told him he would be giving a statement. Then Mercer turned to my brother. "Nathan Walker, you are under arrest on suspicion of forgery, filing a fraudulent instrument, and attempted unlawful possession of real property." The handcuffs came out. My brother, who had once told me I was not really one of the family, was arrested in my front hall under the lights of the house he tried to steal. Lauren was detained too. She started asking for a lawyer before the officer finished reading her rights. Sensible, finally. Shame had arrived several felonies late. My mother cried into both hands. "Emily," she said, "please, please don't do this. We can handle this privately. We're family." There it was again. Family, the magic word people use when accountability knocks and everyone suddenly discovers privacy. I looked at her, and for once I did not feel 9 years old. "There was always room," I said. "You just never made any for me." She shook her head. "That's not fair." "No," I said, "it was." Outside, red and blue lights moved across the windows. My mother had no answer. For the first time in my life, she could not soften what everyone had just seen. As Nathan was led out, still yelling that the house belonged to him, my father sat down on the bottom step of my staircase. Nobody told him to. He just folded there, suddenly old, one hand covering his mouth. I stood a few feet away. I did not comfort him. Comfort is not a tax people can collect from those they failed. After a long moment he said, "I knew it was wrong." I waited. "The table," he said. "Christmas, your mother, all of it, I knew." That landed harder than Nathan's insults. Because I had spent years wondering if maybe no one saw it. Here was the answer. My father saw, he simply chose not to move. "Why me?" I asked. Why was I the one she couldn't stand to look at? He looked up then, and the truth finally came out of him in pieces. Before me, there had been another baby. A girl. She was born too early in December and lived less than a day. My mother came home with empty arms and the pale blue hospital blanket from the photograph. I was born less than a year later, healthy, loud, alive. My mother never forgave the world for that timing. To her, I was not a daughter. I was evidence that life had continued without permission. Every Christmas pulled her back to the baby she lost, and instead of grieving that child, she erased the one standing in front of her. My father said he had tried at first. Then he stopped because my mother fell apart whenever he pushed. So he protected her grief and sacrificed my childhood to do it. I listened, I understood. Those are not the same thing. She mourned one daughter, I said, by making another disappear. He lowered his head. There was nothing left to say. The legal cleanup took weeks, not years, because the evidence was almost offensively complete. The fraud alert, the forged deed, the texts, Lauren's call, the locksmith's statement, the security footage, Jenna's photographs, and Nathan walking into my house with the document in his hand. People talk about smoking guns. My brother had brought the whole campfire. Marissa filed the necessary documents, and the court voided the fraudulent deed. The public record was corrected. My house was mine on paper again, though in every way that mattered, it had never stopped being mine. Nathan and Lauren both took plea deals. Nathan admitted to forging my signature. Lauren admitted she had helped research and arrange the filing. The $84,000 debt did not vanish. It simply gained a criminal record for company. My mother was not charged. There was not enough proof that she had helped with the deed, only that she had helped create the opening. But Jenna's article ran in early January, and everyone in town read enough to understand what had happened. My mother, who had spent her life managing appearances like a second mortgage, finally lost control of the story. She and I do not speak. My father writes letters now. I read them. I have not answered. The morning after Christmas Eve, I changed every lock in the house myself. Then I checked the fraud alert registration again before breakfast because apparently trauma gives you hobbies. I hung one stocking over the fireplace. It had my name on it. The next Christmas, I set the long table beside the windows. 12 places. My employees who had become friends. Denise, gossip, and all, because when the moment came, she told the truth. A neighbor who helped me strip wallpaper. Tanya, my first client, who arrived with pie and cried when she saw the house finished. Every chair was there because I wanted it there. When dinner began, I looked down the table and counted. Not because I was afraid someone had forgotten me, because I had finally become the person setting the places.